Hello, my name is Jonas, and I have a background in psychology and human factors. And today I want to talk about social intelligence. So, when we talk about social intelligence, what we mean is the social knowledge transfer from one individual to another. This has a lot of as opposed to the individual acquisition of knowledge, the knowledge transfer between agents has a lot of advantages. For example, you don't have to learn everything by yourself. You don't have to experience everything by yourself. You don't have to come up with all the right solutions by yourself. And you basically can just learn from someone else. We find a lot of examples of this in the animal kingdom. For example, meerkats teach their young how to hunt for scorpions, which is a very good example of something that you do not want to learn through trial and error. But we also find this in certain species of fish and also in ants. Of course, humans as well are very good at this. We do this much more commonly, to a much higher extent. It's much more complex, often institutionalized, and we call it school. When we look at a typical classroom situation, the complexity of the situation becomes apparent very quickly. We have interactions between multiple individuals that all send and receive information simultaneously. On top of the actual factual information regarding the teaching content, we also have meta-information regarding the importance of certain kinds of information, as well as social information about the sender or the receiver or the relationship between those two. Also, we have knowledge exchange through various modalities. For example, both verbal and non-verbal knowledge exchange at the same time. Today, I want to take the opportunity to talk about one aspect of this that we analyze and that is highly relevant to social knowledge transfer, but that is often overlooked. I'm talking about nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is actually a critical aspect of knowledge transfer. When we think about knowledge transfer, mostly we just think about the verbal aspects. Let me tell you, nonverbal communication is not just the icing on the cake. There are various numbers floating around regarding to what percentage nonverbal communication actually is important for knowledge exchange. Usually they are quite high. I'm not going to go into specifics there because breaking something such like communication down to one specific number can be highly debatable. But nonetheless, the fact remains that it's very important. If you are looking for an example for this, you just have to think back to the recent pandemic, where most of the communication took place digitally through Zoom calls or through emails. And I think we all know countless examples of how this resulted in faulty communication, miscommunication, misunderstandings, or communication simply being much, much harder because we reduced the nonverbal aspects of this interaction. When it comes to a classroom situation, nonverbal communication can have multiple functions. For example, we just have to take one look at a student to see if they are confused, bored, or engaged. On the other hand, a teacher can use nonverbal signals to highlight the importance of certain points, to point out specifics, or to motivate the students. Nonverbal signals are sent through a multitude of different dimensions. For example, we use gaze to show where our attention is currently focused at. We use gestures to highlight specific points or to explain something more deeply through talking with our hands. We use our body pose to show our current status or how we are currently feeling. We can use movement to engage the audience, for example. And we, of course, facial expressions are used to communicate quite a lot. Of course, all of these dimensions being sent together makes researching nonverbal communication quite challenging. One classical approach that we also employ is that we focus on one individual dimension and analyze this in isolation. Here, for example, we have a teacher who explains the same content using the same words, but in the left example, he points out the slide once. Of course, while this kind of research is valuable, it does not really describe how the overall complexity of nonverbal communication is perceived. As Rasha said, context is very important. And in the case of nonverbal communication, the different dimensions actually give context to themselves. For example, the same facial expression can be perceived much differently depending on gesture. In order to tackle this problem, we try to use a multidimensional approach in which we try to use machine learning to teach our computer vision algorithms to perceive situations the same way a human does. We look at classroom situations and we analyze the individual modalities individually. We use computer vision to track the teacher and the students. We track the body pose, the facial expression, the emotions they contain, and we make estimations about the distance between students and teacher. And then we put all of this together again to come up with a way to describe, for example, how the complexity and the complete nonverbal behavior of a teacher is perceived, how motivating he acts, how enthusiastic he acts, and yes, what the effects of this are on the student. This informs us how to facilitate social knowledge exchange. This informs us about social intelligence, and as a byproduct, this can help us to tell teachers how they should behave to optimally support their students, and it can help us to improve our social robots. And with the terms social robots still in the air, I will hand over to Anna.